Listen, Troy, I read your piece today.
He hit
What
hard.
she said is pathetic, but what you wrote is pathetic. Trying to make a comparison between Barnaby, Joyce and Harold Holt and Fraser and leaving out the obvious one, and that is that idiot, deceitful Bill Shorten was a classic avoiding of the real issue. Let me read you what Bill Shorten said in his maiden speech. He said, above all others, I can say on Valentine's Day, I thank my wife, Deb Beale, an endlessly intelligent, supporting and loving woman, whilst at the same time he was deceiving his wife by having an affair and marrying up and then gets his girlfriend pregnant. That's the analogy that has to be made, not someone out of the past. And then you fail to mention good old Tony Burke. Tony Burke, who took his senior advisor to Spain and Italy on a trip that cost $48,000. And when they came back, he promoted her to Chief of Staff. Now tell me, was that job advertised? Was that taxpayers' money properly used? And then we see that when he leaves his wife in 2012, that's the same year that he takes his children business class to Uluru. And was this to try and make up to his children for leaving their mother?
So you're defending
Barnaby Joyce, the bottom line I'm putting to you
is right?
The bottom line I'm saying to you, if Barnaby Joyce has to go, so does Bill Shorten, and take Tony Burke with you.
Okay,
because at the end of the day, where are those questions being asked? Where's the question being asked of Bill Shorten? Where are the questions being asked of Tony Burke? And that includes even reporters from this channel.
Yep.
Why are they not asking? Why are they left over the, you're okay, that's the sort of behaviour we expect from you?
I'm not sure how much television you watch or how many newspapers you read, probably not many, because there's been plenty of coverage in the Australian newspaper about all of these issues
and it died.
over many, many years.
And it died.
Well, it hasn't died. There's been commentary and reporting about all of these politicians. But it doesn't.
There has been a media fatwa put out on Barnaby Joyce, and the jihadists are at it. And there's no equivalent examination of Bill Shorten.
There's plenty of fighters in his own team, including the Prime Minister, who's throwing him under the bus.
But
absolutely, I agree.
I agree with Bronwyn. I certainly hope Barnaby Joyce stays, and I hope he stays for the very reasons you've outlined, because the hypocrisy, just because the media decide we're going to go this guy, it's unacceptable. Barnaby Joyce, for the sake of standing up to media bullying, left-wing bullying, should be saying, no, I'm staying. Because what is the principle at stake here? It has not been shown that he did anything wrong with the job creation for the girl. There's been nothing that's proven wrong. So it's all about the fact that we are now moral Puritans who condemn this guy for having an affair with the girl, including the alternative Prime Minister did exactly the same and is a hero because of it.
But what about what I said last night, where I think that because Malcolm Turnbull played himself in the way he did at the end of last week, the way that he doubled down, the way that he was appalling on Melbourne radio, that now the question has to be, when did he know about the baby? Because
that's absolutely right.
Because he's now weaponised the first question. So when Bill Shorten asks that question as the first question in Parliament next week, how is that not an appropriate question for him to ask?
Well, he should be asking the same question to Bill Shorten. Why was he not attacking Bill Shorten? Why was he going in that one?
You're not answering any of the questions.
The bottom line.
You accuse Bill Shorten of not answering questions, but you're not answering Paul Murray's questions yourself. This is just a complete furphy.
But you completely left it out. You wrote a fake news story.
What is the principle that you think Barnaby Joyce should go on? On what principle? Other than the fact that the media are all going,
I'm happy to talk at length about
it's been going on for 2 weeks.
If I actually get a chance to speak, I'm happy to.
Let's give him some clear air. Go for it.
Well, I mean, there's a number of issues here. I've not made an argument about the choices he's made in his personal life. I couldn't care less about who he decides to have.
You're not answering the question.
What about Bill Shorten?
No, answer the question.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think that he has adequately explained.
Is that Bill Shorten?
The question. I don't think he's adequately answered the issues that have been raised about staff employment, that he had signed off on a number of jobs for the woman that he was having an affair with, as he was moved to several offices, and then and when she left those offices, those jobs were not filled. So there's a question mark there. Hang on a second. There's also questions about travel entitlements. There's also questions about disclosing donations of free accommodation to the Parliament. Those things have not been satisfactorily answered.
Yes,
hang on a second. Well, the principle is public duties.
So
he hasn't given it. The principle is.
Tony Burke should go.
I mean, am I going to get to finish my sentence?
Well,
you guys have been talking half the show.
Bronwyn,
you've had your say. Bronwyn, you've had your say.
Not enough yet.
There's principles about the discharge of his public duties. I just gave you 3 examples of them.
No,
there's also the ministerial code. There's also the ministerial code of conduct, which clearly,
Tony Burke as well.
which clearly, no, the current ministerial code of conduct before it's being amended is clearly
that was the one brought in by John Howard.
He's in breach of that. And when the Prime Minister was asked questions about that, he deferred it, he deflected it, because he knew that was a difficult question to answer. Right. There's also issues. There's also.
I want to finish this up.
What's the point of coming on the show? If these 2 people get to attack me and I never get to respond, it's pathetic.
Answer it, Troy. No, it's not pathetic.
Well, I haven't finished yet.
I was letting you finish.
Not the questions.
I was letting you finish. I was signalling to everyone else to let you finish. So please finish.
Well, there's also other issues about having a function paid for by his department by the same person who's a donor to his party and provided free accommodation. So in the discharge of public duties, which I've just given you half a dozen examples, I don't think there's been any satisfactory example there, and that means he should go. Let me mention 2 other things quickly. He's supposed to be stepping up as acting Prime Minister. If he can't do that, he can't do his job, and he hasn't done it this week. That's another reason why he should go. That's another reason why he should go. And on a political principle, he's caused immense damage to the government. The Prime Minister has said he's made a shocking judgment, personal judgment, so he should go. If he wants to save his party and save the government, he should go. And there's a number of reasons for that. And we can talk about all sorts of other people. In my column today, I simply provided some historical context about different eras where politicians had got away with it. Got away with it.
Well,
Jordan's got away with it.
Got away with
it. So why shouldn't Barnaby Joyce?
And when the Shorten story came out, Kevin Rudd said, "I've got nothing to say here," and everybody left it alone. Now, ask the question: did Bill Shorten stay at Government House? Did he claim TA while he was doing it?
Okay. But Bronwyn, I agree with you. I am no fan of Shorten. I'm no fan of Burke. They deserve their moment in the sun, and all of this should have been happening to them.
But nobody asked them the questions.
That's true, but we can't not ask the questions of Joyce because the other questions
absolutely ask them both.
Correct. But I'm saying is that the active moment before us now is what is going to happen with the Deputy Prime Minister. I hope he doesn't go. I've said that this hasn't hit the threshold for me of why he should go.
Precisely.
The person who has helped bring this as close to the inevitability of him going has been Malcolm Turnbull. Exactly. Malcolm Turnbull's the one who benched him as Deputy Prime Minister this week. Malcolm Turnbull's the one who's lowered the ministerial standard now that anything you've just mentioned or you've been talking about historically would all be sackable offences from here on in. So that's why, to me, the big question of next week is when did the Prime Minister know about key dates? Because he chose to re-embrace Barnaby Joyce, which means if Barnaby Joyce is radioactive, the Prime Minister is going to get it on his hands in the next little while. But I've got to say, just in observation, not in debating point, Troy, it'd been interesting watching a lot of people with this coded language about, the former leaders. Something must be done to solve this situation. Now, what if the resolution is he stays? What if that's the decision is he stays?
Yeah.
Their coded language is he should go. Well, if that's your belief, say it. So in the WA Nationals, if your belief is that he should go, back it up when you get in front of the cameras and actually say it instead of hiding behind it. Instead of Michael McCormack, who's doing everything he can on the phone, just, you there, Darren Chester? Have you rung? Who have you rung? Well, I've just rung this other person.
The job.
Correct. So when you get in front of a camera, you say, you know what? I think this bloke should go. And so what? You might end up on the backbench, but at least you've got, the clean skin to be able to come back and fight.
But also, look, Troy is right to ask the questions. But asking the questions is not the same as having a negative answer to them, and it's only once we have a negative answer to even just one of those questions.
Well, I don't think he's satisfactorily answered any of those questions.
Well, nor has it been satisfactorily shown that he did something wrong, and even Turnbull admitted that, which is why it was so bizarre that he's suddenly talking.
But okay, but again, Rowan, as somebody who is defending him and wants him to stay in the job, he is still taking the piss when he says freedom of information requests, they all show that nothing happened. None of them have been released, so it's difficult for him to say all the evidence proves I did nothing wrong if you're not willing to release all of the evidence.
Well,
Same as the question should be there, adequately asked of an alternative Prime Minister who's going to stand there and moralise.
Yeah.
And same as Malcolm Turnbull moralised.
Prove him wrong. Troy's right to ask the question.
And the media should be in there. And when I saw Carl Stefanovic giving Barnaby Joyce a hard time, I thought, we are truly in the land of the insane.
All right, one and all, thank you very much. One day we'll get on to more than 4 topics tonight, but we'll get there eventually. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Rowan. Stick around, Bronwyn. You're going to do some overtime for us. Let's do a quick break. Back with more here on Paul Murray Live, including that bloody South Australian ad. More in a sec.